The silence in the great crystal chamber was broken only by the soft humming of the translation devices. Ambassador Veltar's forearms shook as he clutched the datapad containing his people's final message. His silver skin had lost its usual shimmer, now dull with exhaustion and fear. "Honored members of the council," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. The assembled delegates leaned forward in their floating seats, their various forms of alien physiology, all focused on the desperate messenger before them. "I come to you not as a diplomat, but as a father watching his children die." The Kethmori ambassador's large black eyes swept across the chamber, taking in the peaceful faces of a dozen different species. The council had been meeting in this same chamber for over 3,000 years, always finding solutions through talk and understanding. Violence was something they had put behind them long ago. 3 months ago they came to our world, Veltar continued, his voice growing stronger. With each word, ships that looked like giant insects, black and twisted. We tried to communicate, sent them messages of peace, offers of trade, even gifts of our finest art. They ignored everything. He pressed a button on his datapad, and the chamber filled with holographic images of his home world. Once, it had been beautiful. Green forests covered rolling hills, while crystal cities sparkled in the light of twin suns. Now, the images showed something else entirely. "They call themselves the Vractal Swarm," Veltar said, his voice breaking. "They do not conquer, they do not rule, they consume. Everything. Everyone. They turn our people into things. Twisted creatures that serve their hive mind." The images changed, showing the horrifying transformation of his people. Peaceful herbivores changed into savage hunting beasts, their minds wiped clean and replaced with the swarm's hunger. Several council members looked away, unable to watch the terrible scenes. "We tried to fight," Veltar admitted, shame coloring his words. "Our security forces had weapons meant for keeping order, not for war. They lasted exactly 17 minutes. Against the first wave, Swarm learned everything about us from the minds they captured. Our defenses, our weaknesses, our fears." He paused, taking a shuddering breath. Round the chamber, the other ambassadors sat in stunned silence. Had all given up warfare long ago, choosing instead to build a galaxy based on peace and cooperation. The idea of something like the Swarm was beyond their understanding. "We have perhaps 48 hours before our world is completely consumed," Veltar continued. "Maybe less. The Swarm works fast and they are thorough. But before I came here, I visited our oldest temple. There, the priests showed me something from our most ancient texts. The holographic display changed again, showing pages of old writing in the flowing script of the Kethmori. The words glowed with a soft blue light, and even through the translation devices, there was something magical about them. "The prophecy speaks of angels from the void," Veltar said, his voice filled with desperate hope. "Beings of light who would come in our darkest hour to deliver the innocent from evil. Guardians who would appear when all seemed lost." He looked directly at Council Leader Mordain, whose crystalline form sparkled with concern. "Our scientists have found them, in the outer rim of the galaxy, far from here. A small blue world orbiting a yellow star. Their technology is advanced, perhaps even more than ours. They have the power to reach the stars, to travel between worlds." "But why do you believe they are these prophesied angels?" asked Ambassador Thelwyn of the Gentle Ones, her melodic voice filled with curiosity. "Many species have space travel. What makes these beings special?" Veltar's expression grew hopeful for the first time since entering the chamber. "Because they are isolated. They have had no contact with the galaxy, yet they have achieved so much. And..." He paused, checking his datapad. "Their world shows signs of great struggle. They have known conflict, but they have also known peace. They have the strength to fight, but also the wisdom to know when to stop." The chamber filled with murmurs as the delegates discussed this revelation. Most had never heard of this distant world, though some of their deep space sensors had detected radio signals from that region decades ago. "We have no military," admitted Council Leader Mordain, his crystalline voice ringing with sadness. "No weapons, no ships of war. For 3,000 years we have built our civilization on the idea that violence solves nothing. But perhaps we were wrong. Veltar stepped forward, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of pleading. I am not asking you to fight. I am asking you to find these angels and bring them our message. If they are truly beings of light and mercy, they will understand. They will help us. And if they refuse? Asked another delegate. Veltar's shoulders sagged. Then my people will die, and the swarm will move on to the next world, and the next. And eventually, they will come for all of us. The chamber fell silent once more as the weight of his words sank in. Outside the great windows, the stars twinkled peacefully. Unaware of the darkness spreading through the galaxy, Council Leader Mordain's form brightened as he made his decision. We will send a ship to this blue world. We'll find these angels and carry your message to them. Veltar collapsed to his knees, all four arms pressed to the floor in gratitude. Thank you. Thank you all. May the light guide you to them quickly. The white ship appeared in Earth's sky like a pearl against black velvet. Its smooth surface reflected no light, and it moved without sound through the atmosphere. Within hours, every military radar on the planet had detected it, and within minutes after that, fighter jets surrounded the mysterious vessel. But the ship made no hostile moves. Instead, it transmitted a simple message in dozens of Earth languages. We come in peace. We need your help. 3 days later, in the Great Assembly Hall of the United Nations building, representatives from every major nation on Earth sat in stunned silence. The aliens had been given permission to land, and now they stood before humanity for the first time. Admiral D. Park Hyun-woo watched the alien delegation with the careful eyes of a man who had spent 30 years preparing for war. His gray hair was cut short in military style, and his uniform bore the marks of a dozen different conflicts. Beside him, Dr. Kim Ju-won adjusted her glasses as she studied the strange beings before them. The lead alien, who called himself Ambassador Veltar, was unlike anything humans had imagined. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the artificial light. His forearms moved gracefully as he spoke, and his large black eyes held depths of sadness that made several diplomats uncomfortable. We have traveled far to reach your world, Veltar said through the translation device that floated between them. Our ancient texts spoke of this day, when beings of light would come to save the innocent from darkness. President Martinez of the United States leaned forward in her chair. You're saying your people have prophecies about Earth? About angels? Veltar corrected gently. Divine beings who would appear in our darkest hour to deliver us from evil. We have searched the galaxy for you, and we believe you are those angels. Uncomfortable silence filled the room. Many of the human delegates shifted in their seats, not sure how to respond to being called angels. Admiral Park's expression remained unchanged, but Dr. Kim Ji-won raised an eyebrow. What exactly do you need angels for? Asked Colonel Lee Min-ho, the head of Earth's Special Operations Command. His voice was flat and professional, the tone of a man who had seen too much combat to believe in divine intervention. Veltar's silver skin seemed to dim as he activated a holographic projector. The air above the conference table filled with images of his dying world. Cities burned, forests withered, and twisted creatures that had once been his people hunted the survivors. The Vractal swarm, he explained, his voice heavy with grief. They consume everything. They turn our people into monsters and use them to hunt down the rest. We have perhaps hours before our world is completely destroyed. Dr. Kim Ji-won stood up, her scientific mind immediately engaged. These creatures, how do they reproduce? How do they communicate? Are they individuals or part of a collective? They are one mind in many bodies, Veltar replied, surprised by the intensity of her questions. They share thoughts, memories, experiences. When one learns something, they all learn it. Colonel Lee Min-ho's eyes narrowed. How many ships? What weapons do they use? How fast can they travel? I don't understand, Veltar said, confusion clear in his voice. We came seeking angels of mercy, beings of light who would stop. Admiral Park interrupted, his voice cutting through the alien's words like a blade. Let me make something very clear. You came to the wrong planet if you're looking for angels, eh? Alien delegates looked at each other in confusion. This was not how they had imagined first contact would go. Where were the beings of light and mercy their prophecies had promised? "We are not angels," Admiral Park continued, standing slowly. "We are not beings of light. We are not divine. We are human beings, and we have spent our entire history learning how to kill each other more efficiently." Dr. Kim Ji-won nodded, her attention still focused on the holographic images of the swarm. "Show us their biology, their ship designs, their attack patterns, everything you have." But the prophecies, Veltar protested weakly. "You were supposed to be our salvation." Colonel Lee Min-ho smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Oh, we'll be your salvation, but not in the way you expected." He gestured to the images of the swarm. "See, we humans have a particular talent. We're very good at killing things that need to be killed." The alien delegation stepped back, suddenly uncertain. These humans were not the peaceful angels they had hoped for. There was something dangerous about them, something that made the air in the room feel charged with potential violence. "Your prophets were wrong," Admiral Park said, his voice steady and cold. "We're not angels, we're apex predators. You just showed us prey that's been hurting innocent people." Dr. Kim Ji-won looked up from the holographic data, her eyes bright. With scientific curiosity, Swarm's collective consciousness is their strength, but it's also their weakness. Disrupt their communication, and they'll fall apart. "How long do we have?" asked Colonel Lee Min-ho, already thinking about deployment strategies. "Perhaps 48 hours, Veltar whispered. Still shocked by the turn the conversation had taken, Admiral Park's smile was sharp as a knife. "Then we better get started. You asked for angels, Ambassador? What you're getting is something much worse for your enemies." The room fell silent as the full implications of first contact became clear. The angels the aliens had prayed for had arrived, but these angels carried weapons and had a very human understanding of justice. The alarm bells rang through every military base on Earth at exactly 0600 hours. Within minutes, soldiers who had been sleeping peacefully were running to their posts. Pilots were climbing into cockpits. Generals were gathering in war rooms around the world. Admiral Park Hyun-woo stood in the command center deep beneath the Pentagon, watching as dozens of screens came alive with information. Ship locations, weapon counts, troop movements, everything humanity needed to wage war was being displayed in real time. His weathered hands moved quickly across the control panel, sending orders to every corner of the globe. "Status report," he called out to his staff. "All Pacific Fleet units are moving to launch position," reported Captain Yang Sung-ho. "European Space Command has their fastest ships ready. The Russians are loading their heavy weapons platforms." Admiral Park nodded, his expression grim. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth was working together for a single purpose. The sight would have been beautiful if it wasn't so terrifying. 46 hours until the Kethmori homeworld falls, he announced to the room. "We launch in 12 hours. Make sure every ship, every weapon, every soldier is ready." Across the world, the human war machine roared to life. Factories that had been making cars and computers suddenly switched to producing weapons and armor. Scientists who had been studying medicine began working on ways to kill alien creatures they had never seen before. In her laboratory, at the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Kim Ji-won had not slept in 3 days. Empty coffee cups surrounded her workstation as she stared at the biological samples the aliens had provided. Her team worked around the clock, studying the Vractal swarm with the intensity of people who knew millions of lives depended on their success. "Look at this," she said to her assistant, Dr. Bae Yoon-soo, pointing to the microscopic image on her screen. "The neural pathways in their brain tissue are completely different from anything we've seen. They're not really individual creatures at all. It's more like cells in a larger organism," Dr. Bae agreed, adjusting the magnification. "But if we can disrupt the chemical signals they use to communicate, the whole system collapses," Dr. Kim finished. "Like cutting the phone lines in a city. Suddenly nobody can talk to anybody else." She turned to her computer and began typing. Rapidly, the bioweapon she was designing would target the specific proteins the swarm used to share thoughts. It would be like giving them all a form of brain damage that made them forget how to work together. How long to produce enough for the entire fleet? Asked Dr. Bay. 8 hours, Dr. Kim replied without looking up from her work. Maybe 7 if we skip the safety tests. Skip them? Said a voice from the doorway. General Kim Tae-young, the head of military biological warfare, stepped into the lab. Don't have time for safety tests. Need weapons at work, and we need them now. Dr. Kim nodded, her fingers flying across the keyboard. In any other situation, she would have protested. Releasing an untested biological weapon was dangerous and irresponsible. But these were not normal times. 3,000 miles away, at Camp Pendleton in California, Master Sergeant Choi Soo-jin watched her Special Forces team prepare for a mission unlike anything they had ever attempted. These were the best soldiers humanity had to offer, men and women who had trained for years to fight in the most dangerous situations imaginable. Listen up, she called to her squad as they checked their equipment. We're not fighting humans. This time we're fighting something that thinks like a computer and moves like an animal. Everything you know about psychology and fear, throw it out the window. Private First Class Oh Dong-wook raised his hand. Sergeant, if they're all connected, mentally, won't they know everything we're planning? That's exactly why we're going to make them afraid, Sergeant Choi replied with a cold smile. Fear makes people, and apparently aliens, make mistakes. We're going to show them what happens when humans get angry. She activated a holographic display showing the layout of a Vrachtal ship. These creatures have never fought humans before. They don't know how we think, how we fight, or what we're capable of. We're going to teach them. The soldiers nodded, understanding the implications. They wouldn't just be fighting to win. They would be fighting to send a message to the entire galaxy about what happened when someone threatened innocent people. Meanwhile, in the observation deck of the alien ship still orbiting Earth, Ambassador Veltar watched the human preparations with growing alarm. The peaceful council species had expected to find angels of mercy, but what they were seeing was something else entirely. They're mobilizing their entire planet for war, whispered Ambassador Thielwyn, her melodic voice filled with concern. Look at those weapons, those ships. They're designed for nothing but destruction. Veltar nodded, his forearms trembling. Slightly. Perhaps we made a mistake. Perhaps we should have found another way. It's too late now, observed Council Leader Mordain, his crystalline form reflecting the harsh light of the human military displays. Their war machine is already in motion. We can only hope they are indeed the angels our prophecies spoke of. But as they watched the humans prepare for battle with ruthless efficiency, began to wonder if angels could be just as terrifying as demons when they were angry. The countdown to launch continued, and humanity prepared to show the galaxy what apex predators looked like when they went hunting. The human fleet burst from hyperspace, like a pack of wolves entering a slaughterhouse. 50 ships spread across the dark void above the Kethmori homeworld, their weapons already charging as they took in the horrific scene below. Admiral Park Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, his hands gripping the metal railing as he watched the planet die. What had once been a beautiful world of green forests and crystal cities was now a nightmare of geometric scars and industrial harvesting. The Vrachtal bioships hung in orbit like massive black beetles, their surfaces pulsing with an alien heartbeat. Sir, we're detecting 17 enemy vessels, reported Lieutenant Commander Na Ji-hoon from his position at the sensor station. They're huge. Each one is at least 3 times the size of our largest battleship. Admiral Park's weathered face showed no emotion. Size doesn't matter if you know where to hit them. All units, this is Admiral Park. Commence Operation Righteous Hunt. The Vrachtal swarm noticed the human arrival with the casual interest of a predator that had never known fear. Their collective consciousness had consumed hundreds of species across the galaxy. These newcomers would be no different from all the others. Another meal to be processed and absorbed. The first human attack came without warning. Dr. Kim Ji-won's bioweapons, delivered by fast attack ships, struck the swarm vessels like invisible lightning. The specially designed toxins spread through the organic hulls of the bioships, targeting the neural networks that connected each creature to the hive mind. Within seconds, the effect was devastating. Vrachtal creatures that had moved with perfect Coordination suddenly stumbled and fell. Constant mental chatter that had connected millions of minds went silent in patches, leaving isolated groups of aliens confused and afraid. "What is happening?" The swarm's collective voice screamed across their communication channels. "We cannot hear, cannot think." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Park watched the chaos with cold satisfaction. Phase 2. Send in the hunters. Throughout the human fleet, boarding pods launched toward the crippled Vractal ships. Inside the lead pod, Master Sergeant Choi Soo-jin checked her weapons one final time. Her Special Forces team sat in silence, their faces painted, with war paint that made them look like demons in the dim light. "Remember," she told her squad as they prepared to board the enemy vessel, "we're not just here to kill them, we're here to make them afraid. Fear is a weapon they've never faced before." The boarding pod slammed into the side of a Vractal bioship. Cutting through the organic hull with plasma torches, Sergeant Choi was the first through the breach, a rifle already firing at the twisted creatures that came to investigate the noise. The inside of the alien ship was like stepping into a living nightmare. The walls pulsed with veins and arteries, and the floors were covered in a sticky organic matter that smelled of decay. Vractal creatures skittered through the corridors on too many legs, their minds partially cut off from the hive by Dr. Kim's bioweapons. "They're trying to re-establish connection," reported Corporal Lim Hae-won, monitoring the alien communications, "but they're panicking. They've never been isolated before." "Good," Sergeant Choi replied, advancing through the organic corridors. "Let's give them something new to panic about." The human soldiers moved through the ship like a plague of destruction. They didn't just fight, they hunted. Every corner they turned, every room they entered, brought new horrors for the Vractal. The aliens had never faced an enemy that fought with such calculated brutality. "Neural node detected," called out Private First Class Oh Dong-wook, pointing to a massive pulsing organ embedded in the wall. "It's trying to coordinate the local defense." "Destroy it," Sergeant Choi ordered. "Make sure they can never put the pieces back together." The explosion that followed severed the connection between hundreds of Vractal creatures. The aliens collapsed, their shared consciousness fragmenting into individual minds that had never learned to think alone. The fear that followed was unlike anything the swarm had ever experienced. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out on every Vractal ship. Human forces didn't just attack, they systematically dismantled the enemy's ability to function. They targeted communication nodes, breeding chambers, and command centers with surgical precision. Admiral Park watched from his command chair as the tide of battle turned completely. The Vractal swarm, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, was falling apart like a house of cards. Their perfect coordination was gone, replaced by chaos and terror. "Sir," reported Captain Young Sunko, "the enemy fleet is breaking up. Some ships are trying to flee, but they're not moving in coordination anymore. They're just ... running." "Don't let them escape," Admiral Park ordered, his voice as cold as space itself. "We end this here. No survivors, no retreat. The galaxy needs to see what happens when someone threatens innocent people." The human fleet pursued the fleeing Vractal ships with relentless efficiency. What had started as a rescue mission had become something else entirely. A complete extermination of a species that had terrorized the galaxy for too long. As the last Vractal bioship exploded in a burst of organic fire, Admiral Park allowed himself a small smile. The hunt was over, but the message had been sent. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy, and they were not the angels anyone had expected. The great crystal chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 4-3. 1,000 years? These halls had echoed with the gentle voices of peaceful species discussing trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Now, the silence was heavy with fear and uncertainty. Admiral Park Hyun-woo walked slowly to the center of the chamber, his military boots clicking against the polished floor. His uniform was still stained with the smoke of battle, and his weathered face showed the exhaustion of someone who had just finished the bloodiest campaign in human history. Around him, the assembled delegates watched with wide eyes, their various alien forms trembling with a mixture of gratitude and terror. The Kethmori. "Homeworld is secure," Admiral Park announced, his voice carrying clearly through the translation devices. "The Vractal swarm has been completely destroyed. Every ship, every creature, every trace of their existence has been eliminated from the galaxy." Ambassador Veltar rose from his floating seat, his forearms shaking as he approached the human. "Commander." His silver skin, which had been dull with despair just days before, now gleamed with relief and joy. "Admiral Park, we cannot find words to express our gratitude. You have saved not just my people, but our entire civilization. You gave us back our children," added another Kethmori delegate, tears streaming down her face. "Our cities still stand. Our forests still grow. 'Cause of you, we have a future." Admiral Park nodded, but his expression remained cold and distant. "The swarm is gone, yes. But in destroying them, we learned something troubling. They had detailed information about dozens of other species, planets they planned to attack next, civilizations they intended to consume." The chamber filled with worried murmurs as the delegates realized the implications. The Vractal swarm had not been acting randomly. They had been planning a systematic conquest of the entire galaxy. "We studied their biology," continued Dr. Kim Gi-won, stepping forward from her position behind the Admiral. Her scientific mind had been working non-stop since the battle ended, analyzing every piece of data they had collected. They weren't the only threat out there. Our deep space sensors are detecting similar signatures in 3 other star systems. The alien delegates looked at each other in growing alarm. They had thought the swarm was unique, a single terrible enemy that could be defeated and forgotten. The possibility of other threats had never occurred to them.
"Oh, what are you saying?"
"That there are more of these creatures." "Not exactly like the swarm," Dr. Kim replied, pulling up holographic displays of her research, but other predator species, other threats to peaceful civilizations, and based on what we've learned, they're all heading toward Council space. Colonel Choi Soo-jin, recently promoted after her heroic actions during the battle, stepped forward. Her face bore fresh scars from her fight inside the Vractal ships, and her eyes held the hard look of someone who had seen too much violence. "The galaxy is not as safe as you believed. You've been living in a protected bubble, but that bubble just burst." "We've made a decision," Admiral Park announced, his voice cutting through the growing panic in the chamber. "Humanity cannot return to Earth and pretend we never learned about these threats. We have a responsibility now." "What kind of responsibility?" asked Ambassador Thielwyn, her melodic voice filled with concern. "We are going to protect you," Admiral Park replied simply. "All of you, whether you want our protection or not." The chamber erupted in confused voices as the delegates tried to process what they were hearing. Dr. Kim Ji-won raised her hand for silence. "We'll be establishing research stations throughout Council space. We need to study potential threats, develop new weapons, and prepare for future attacks. Human military advisors will be assigned to every Council world," added Colonel Choi. "We'll train your security forces, establish defense networks, and create rapid response protocols. Never again will peaceful species be caught defenseless." "But we don't want military advisors," protested Ambassador Veltar, "despite everything the humans had done for his people. We are peaceful. We've been peaceful for thousands of years." Admiral Park's smile was cold and sharp. "That's exactly why you need us. Peace is a luxury you can only afford when someone else is willing to fight for it." The delegates exchanged uneasy glances. They had asked for angels to save them from the darkness, but these angels were offering to become their permanent guardians. The price of salvation was higher than they had expected. "The galaxy's age of innocence is over," Admiral Park continued, his words echoing through the silent chamber. "You've seen what's out there in the darkness. You've seen what happens to peaceful species when predators come hunting. We won't let it happen again." "You're talking about occupation?" whispered Council Leader Mordain, his crystalline form dimming with fear. "We're talking about survival," Admiral Park corrected. "You can call it whatever you want. But understand this. We've tasted alien blood, and we've decided we like the flavor of justice. We'll keep you safe from the darkness, even if it means we must become the darkness ourselves." The chamber fell silent once more as the full implications became clear. The peaceful species of the galaxy now had guardians. But these guardians carried weapons and had developed a taste for righteous violence. They were protected, but they were no longer free. The angels they had prayed for had arrived, but these angels cast very long shadows.